Yeah, you're on the Hillbilly Voodoo channel. Today on Hillbilly Voodoo, we're going to solve a problem that we've had for quite a while. How do you make a precision ground keyway in a chunk of shafting with tools that maybe are not made for it, or, well, probably aren't made for making anything precision? Stick around, see what type of ground obtainium we had to dig up and what type of Hillbilly Voodoo we had to do to make that precision ground keyway in that shaft. Now, the last time on Hillbilly Voodoo, we built our adapter plate so that we can run a stock clutch in our transmission, and we can power this with just about any motor that spins around. Got it all more or less finalized. We did not Loctite anything into place, so this is all going to come apart again. And we also need to put a keyway in this shaft so that any type of pulley or sprocket or anything that we drive off of here is keyed in place and it's not just going to spin around. Now, I don't have any precision way of making keyways. I don't have a broach, I don't have a shaping machine, anything like that. In the past, I just grabbed a file, marked out the size of the keyway, started filing, got into it for a half hour, 45 minutes, whatever it was. Got really frustrated because it was taking so long. Ended up grabbing a grinder, and well, you know what happens with just using a grinder freehand. Things are not exactly precision. So what my thought is, I have a lathe. Why not create some way of precision grinding a keyway in shafts that I can hook up to my lathe and kind of make it work, or at least hopefully make it work more precision than just freehanding with a grinder. So let's disassemble all this and try to figure out some way that we can build a keyway grinder for my lathe. Yeah, I think that's going to be the project for this week. Okay, this is kind of where my brain is going. We have this set up right now for tube notching. Got a hole saw in there and our tube holder. If you missed out on that little project, you should go back through the channel and check it out. It's kind of a cool idea and it works super well. Okay, anyways, my idea here is we have a key stock, certain size. I believe that one's 1/4 inch. And we have thin cut grinding wheels that we can stack these up till they come to 1/4 inch. I think that would be probably 3 of those grinding wheels stacked up together would be 1/4 inch. Now, if we figure out some way that we can mount this grinder in the tool post so that those discs would be spinning right on the center axis, you know what I'm talking about, like right in the very center of that, then we could use the carriage to run this grinder back and forth and grind ourselves a precision groove, right? Because it wouldn't go up and down like this, it'll just go back and forth like that. Lock out the headstock, have our stock in there, and have our grinder go back and forth. Should grind us a nice precision keyway, the width of whatever disc we put in there. That's my theory anyways. Now, whether this is going to work, that's a completely different story, but we're going to try this out. So what are we going to need? Well, we got a grinder here. It's got holes in it for where you can mount the handle in different positions, so I'm thinking that maybe we can use those holes for the grinder mount to hold it in there. Now we need something that we can clamp in the tool post. And, well, we're going to need some way to line all this up. So we'll probably stick a piece of round stock or something in the chuck between centers so that we can get this all kind of where it needs to be. Yeah, so let's go check the piles of ground obtainium for something that we can clamp into our headstock here, or not headstock, into our tool post, and we can start building off of that. So we're not even going to need to check the piles for ground obtainium. We're going to need to check the ground for ground obtainium, because I have all kinds of chunks of flat stock that I've cut off and just dropped on the ground around the bench here, and that should be able to find something in here that we can clamp in that tool post. What do we got? that's a pretty good thick chunk of steel, so we'll grab that one. And there's another big thick chunk. That one's got a weird taper to it, so we probably won't use that. That's a piece of wood. What else we got here? There's another big thick chunk. What else is laying here? There's another piece there. Well, we'll assess which is the best out of these, which is the cleanest anyways. And we will use that for clamping into the tool post. I've cleaned up a couple of those pieces of metal there and clamped them into our tool post. I'm going to grab a couple more pieces of short metal and bolt them to the sides of our grinder here so that we can figure out a way to weld the grinder to those chunks hanging out of our tool post. Thinking maybe a chunk of angle iron up like that so that it gets it up to the center point. See, our grinding wheel is going to have to be centered on this center point of the lathe, right? So piece of angle iron that comes up mounts to the pieces that we're going to attach to the grinder. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Let's try that part out. Well, I got our grinder all attached here with some brutally ugly tack welds. It's in there pretty solid, not moving around, and goes back and forth with the carriage, in and out, so we can control the depth. And I ended up measuring, and it took 4 of those cutoff wheels to make up a 1/4 inch. So let's chalk up a piece of sacrificial shafting here and see if we end up with a precision ground 1/4 inch keyway, or if we end up with a buggered up piece of sacrificial shaft. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. Well, I don't know, boys and girls. That kind of looks like a precision keyway to me. I didn't go full depth because I might end up using this shaft for something that doesn't need a keyway in it, but yeah, that's damn tight and it's in there. So yeah, guess that idea kind of worked out. It's pretty cool. So let's take that adapter that we made and let's put a keyway in that and see if we can do it without screwing it up. Yeah, that's like super slick. Didn't take very long to do either. Almost like we know what we're doing. Boy, we got them fooled, don't we? Hey, you guys would let me know if I had anything in my beard, wouldn't you? I always feel like I got something in my beard. It's kind of weird. Anyways, back to the show. Well, let's disassemble our clutch and flywheel so we can get at our shaft here. Disassemble! No, disassemble! Johnny Five is alive! Shut up, Johnny Five, you're not alive. We had to disassemble this all anyways because we have to Loctite all these bolts. There's not enough room in here to put lock washers, not enough room to put a proper stover nut or nylock, so we'll stick a bunch of thread locker on there and hopefully they won't fall apart. I think I might also stake them too when I put them all back together. Anybody that doesn't know what staking means, I talk about it quite often. It's when you take a center punch and you punch into the metal and it spreads the metal out. Yeah. Okay, let's go put this in the lathe and see if we can get a precision keyway in there. Well, I thought everything was going way too good. Started cutting this keyway in the shaft here. It started going really, really nicely. And then I broke one of my tack welds on my little thingy here. And as you can see, I have completely screwed that shaft. Yeah, that's a whole lot of machining and building and figuring out that I gotta fix now. And the only way I can think of fixing this is weld that crack, that messed up groove up, and remachine the shaft, and hopefully I don't totally warp it all to crap, and that I can machine that back down again and retry to cut that key. Yeah, that's kind of a, yeah, we're not even gonna go where that's kind of a, okay, well, I can't sit here and whine about it all friggin' day. I guess I better weld that up and see if we can actually fix it or not. Well, cross your fingers here, guys, and hopefully you can fix this giant shit bauble up here. Got her all welded up, and gonna turn it down, and hopefully I can get it back to the same position it was before we messed it all up. Well, I think we've recovered from our little fumble here. Turn that shaft back down nice and smooth, and I welded my little grinder jiggy thing up again. Reground that keyway. Turned out okay. It's not quite as pretty as it used to be, but it's got a big slot in it, so how could it be as pretty as it used to be? Well, let's reassemble this clutch and pressure plate. We're going to use Loctite on it this time, because I'm hoping that I won't have to take it back apart. Hoping. So yeah, let's put this back together and stick it back on our machine. Booga, booga, booga. You should go subscribe. Okay, let's see if we can get this thing back together here. I probably should have checked and made sure there's no weld spatter in any of those holes, but yeah, whatever. Oh, put that down like that. Start feeding bolts through it. Guess technically I should be using grade 8 nuts on grade 8 bolts, but guess what? I don't have any, so we use what we got to make what we want, right? Okay, let's stick 2 nuts on there just to hold everything in place. And then we'll stick some Loctite on the other ones and get her all put together here. working. Guess the trick is to get this clutch centered in here as close as I can, because I don't have a pilot shaft to hold it in place. So get it pretty much right where it should be, and then we'll squeeze her down with the pressure plate here. I'm sure there's some magical torque spec somewhere for this, but you know what? Tight enough is tight enough. So let's go put this back in our transmission, and yeah. Guess I probably should have made sure that that bearing housing slid over there before I assembled all this. Guess hindsight's 20/20, right? God, I hope I don't have to take that apart again. I'm a dumbass. Okay, let's see if I manage to get this clutch and pilot bearing lined up here. Yep. Well, that's a good thing. Now, is this bearing housing going to slide over our new modified shaft? Yes, it is. Now something's nagging at me and telling me that I should be putting a shit ton of never seize on here so these bearings don't seize to the shaft. So I think that's exactly what I'm going to do before I bolt everything down here. I'm sure the person that takes it apart the next time will thank me, and that person will probably be me. So yeah, when you're working with junk, never ceases your friend, except for when it's all over your hands, then it's your nemesis, but it's still your friend. We'll put just enough on there to think that we're doing something and not enough on there that we actually are, right? Isn't that the way it goes? Stick that on there now. And let's put some bolts in it. Well, I think that's that, guys. We got ourselves a precision ground keyway in there. Now we can try to decide what we're going to use for an engine and what we're going to decide to use for a sprocket or a pulley to connect that engine with. So until next time, guys, use what you got to make what you want, and I'll see you later.